Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us. This season, we'll be talking past tense and future tense, where farmers markets have been and how we can impact their future. We're focusing on the tried and true basics that still work and new systems and insights to make your market or market business stronger and less stressful. Today, let's talk market programming.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by The Kitchen Door, connecting food entrepreneurs throughout the U.S. with well-run shared-use kitchens. Find clean, licensed kitchens in your area and concentrate on food production and not kitchen and equipment maintenance. Find more information at thekitchendoor.com or by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. We're talking in this season about past tense and future tense. That means making use of the resources and knowledge we've all gained over time and sharing new tools and information to help our markets and businesses thrive and grow. Today, we're talking about market programming. There are loads of differing opinions about whether we should focus on being a grocery store in the street or at the park, or if special programming brings more people to the market and whether those people come to shop or just to play.
I mean, people do love to come take that salsa lesson.
They sure do.
But are they buying vegetables? That's what we don't know.
They can make salsa after they do some salsa and buy some tomatoes.
That's a good idea. I say you make them buy tomatoes, peppers, and onions before they dance.
Actually, this is a good idea. This wasn't even in our sheet for today, but salsa dancing at the market, and then they have to go buy the ingredients for salsa and make different salsas. That's kind of fun.
That could be fun. Yeah. Okay. So the idea is keep it relevant. Keep it in that market theme. So there's a lot of programming that people do at markets. So music is cool programming at markets. I prefer an ambient music situation so that people can listen to music as they shop, no matter what kind of music it is. I'm not saying it has to be cool jazz. It doesn't have to be, boomer related, but it can be culturally appropriate for your market. So there's a market near me that uses just a bump and DJ, and it's fun. It kind of jazzes everybody up. I think I shop faster.
Yeah, just something like you have on at your house while you're cooking or cleaning or hanging out with friends. Something that maybe you're not stopping and listening to every note of, but something that can be really fun for the folks at your market in the background as they do what they should be doing there, which is shop.
Exactly. And I think that's where certain kinds of music can get a little tricky if what you're doing is dance lessons or I hate to say this because I love the Double Dutch folks, but jump roping, magicians, where everybody sits and watches them. Those kind of things. We had an amazing kids choir. There was an international kids choir that used to come through our city every year. And we always signed them up to come to the market because it was so amazing. See, they'd have like 30 or 40 kids. And they would stand in the middle of the market where nobody could get around them. And a big crowd would form to watch them. Again, nobody could get around them. And they'd sing for, not forever, but for 35 or 40 minutes. And while there was a lot of applause and everybody enjoyed them, and I, of course, cried, as I do when children sing, there were also vendors that were crying, and not in a wistful way, in more of an angry, frustrated way, because everybody stopped to watch the kids, and they stopped shopping. So I think you have to be careful about music that becomes a performance versus music that's just adding to your atmosphere.
Exactly. Yes. And especially if you're in an area where parking maybe is at a premium and someone has a 30-minute parking spot, do you want them to spend 15 minutes of their time at your market watching a performance? Or do you want them to spend the full 30 minutes shopping at that many more vendors and farmers at your market?
Yeah, I think that's really the point there. You had brought up earlier when we were talking about this yoga. I mean, so many people love having yoga lessons at the markets, and I think it's awesome. But maybe you do it during setup or something, so everybody's relaxed and ready to shop. But again, it's one of those things that if they're doing that, they can't be shopping.
Yeah, some kind of adjacent activity where it's maybe at a studio right next to your market and you just get a partnership with them, or in the park next to where you're setting up your market. And so they can do their yoga. And then once the market's open, you have a coffee and breakfast special and, bag of groceries with a coupon because you did yoga class or something like that. Like make it related to shopping at the market. So people don't just come and do yoga and then say, oh, hi to everybody and take some photos with some flowers and then leave.
Right. We have some folks that do Pilates in the park. Next, one of our markets runs along the edge of a park, and they're cool. And we kind of do a thing like that with them. We'll put on our social media, come check out Pilates in the park, and then come over for a latte and what have you. And they do the same thing.
Mhm.
So our reach is quite a bit bigger than theirs. So it gets them a lot of people. And then they always mention to their Pilates-ers, what's a Pilates practicing person? Um, they always mention to them, hey, you're going to be hungry after this. Go up and get a coffee, go get a muffin, get your grocery shopping done for the day, and then we'll see you next week.
Yeah. So I think it's maybe like assessing what is happening with your market with these activities and the community there, because you shouldn't just set up activities and say, okay, we did activities. You should set up activities and then you need to watch what those people are doing, because if they're doing yoga and then they're just chatting and then they're walking through the market and leaving, then you know that maybe yoga is not the best activity for your market. If they're doing yoga and they brought their shopping bags and after yoga, they all, get with their friends or they walk around and they're filling up their shopping bags and they are doing shopping after yoga, then maybe yoga is a good activity to do at your market. But you really need like to gather some data, even just with your eyeballs, about what are the folks that are doing these activities doing before or after the market, and then apply that to what programming you're focusing your energy on,
Yeah,
to
good call. Anything that you do once, obviously, is not going to hurt you. So, but just be aware, be intentional about looking at what's happening and how it's affecting the market.
yeah.
Yeah, good insight.
Hmm.
A lot of folks like to do kids crafts. Uh, I mean, there's an amazing resource that you can use for kids programming and definitely focused on food and the foods available at the market that comes from Farmers Market Coalition. It's called Pop Club. It was developed by somebody outside of FMC, I think, a while back, but they worked to make it really consistent and develop an amazing set of resources that go with it. So you can go to the Farmers Market Coalition website. It's a little bit tricky to find, but if you go all the way to the bottom of their homepage, you can click POP Resources, POP. That stands for Power of Produce. And there's all kinds of lists of activities. There's graphics that you can use. There's a whole thing about the 2 Bite Club, which is a really cool way to talk kids into at least trying a new food. And I know that a lot of markets use that program. I've got to admit that I have not personally used it, although I've got a new guy coming on to one of my markets that I think is going to push it ahead in one of our communities. And I think that's just so helpful. I know they're also kind of reviving a community of practice right now at FMC where you can get feedback and ideas from other people that have used the Pop Club program.
Yeah.
But some folks just do kids craft. And I remember at one of our markets, we did for a while. I mean, and part of what you have to deal with when you're thinking about programming is what your staff's bandwidth is. But what we had done is set it up with somebody that was doing kids' art classes anyway in the neighborhood. And so it gave her a place to do it. We gave her a tent. We set up her tables and things, but she totally managed it. She would bring all the egg cartons and all the materials that you would need to make anything. She had a really cute name. What was it?
Mona Lizzie.
Mona Lizzie, that's right. That's who I'm thinking of. And they painted little pumpkins in the fall and they did a lot of things. I don't remember her stuff being particularly food related, but it was another reason for families to come to the market. They enjoyed it. It was in a tent. We put them right in line with everybody else in a tent with tables and chairs, so they weren't blocking an aisle, and people did seem to love that.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, speaking of positioning in the market, it was nice that it was in a tent because it was like, okay, you're stopping by, and then while your kid's doing activity, you kind of just step 2 or 3 steps away, and the parents could buy some stuff, or they could, grab a tamale or whatever they're doing while their kid is kind of doing this activity because there was an art teacher present to do the activity with them. And when we did painting the pumpkins, she would buy the pumpkins from the farmers that were there with the pumpkins, or we would buy them if they were like, we could just buy like 20 or 30 mini pumpkins and order them from the farmer. And then we were supporting the farms while also having a kids activity there. And then she ended up working with some farmers to get flowers, to make pressed flowers activities at her classes and things like that. So that makes it really relevant where she like developed a relationship with the farmers there and we're able to buy product from them for future art projects or for things that she was doing at the market. So that was a nice, and I think the parents, appreciated that they were doing like farm related projects while they were at the farmer's market.
Yeah, we found coloring sheets to be super helpful. And those sometimes we take out into the community and pass them out at schools or at other events, have the kids color them, bring them back. If they bring their colored sheet of all the green vegetables or all the red vegetables back, then maybe they get a market dollar or they get a treat of some kind that they can take home. And so those can be really helpful. Kids' activities definitely are good because we all know, you certainly know, Bridget, that kids influence parents and they are the ones that tell you where you're going for after school snack. And if they love the market, that's a good thing. They're going to bring mom and dad with them.
For sure. Yeah, we gave him a sheet with just a picture of a tent on it, like pop-up tent. And then the kids would have to draw their own farmers market booth. And I remember that was so cute because they'd kind of draw like their favorite vendor, selling what they like in there. And lots of cookie vendors were drawn underneath those tents on those coloring sheets. But it was good because it related to the market. And then it really made the kids think about what they like about the market.
Yeah, I love those. There's good activities you can do too, where you kind of take kids out into the market. So a bingo card. We always have really fun bingo cards for market managers at our conference, but at the market, a good bingo card is for kids. And actually, we found even adults get really excited about this, filling out their bingo card. But find a farmer selling apples, find a farmer that's wearing a hat, find somebody that's got a lot of pink on their booth, all kinds of things that you can look for in the market, and that gets people moving through the market. So those kind of activities are fun.
Yeah, those are always really fun. And just, I mean, all of these things we've just mentioned, like don't overthink it. You don't need to do some complicated Picasso artwork in a booth at the market. Just, I mean, make it simple, make it easy so it's not stressful for the parents and they're not sitting there for hours while their kid is working, meticulously on something. Give them something that they can do quickly and they can have a lot of fun and it will make an impact on them and make them think of the farmer's market.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's really helpful. I know there's some group that tries to encourage people to do scavenger hunts. There was one real organized one that was doing them all over, and you would look for Rodney Rooster, which was a little stuffed rooster, and they would plant it. They'd bury him up to his little rooster neck in squash or blueberries, and people would go through the market and find Rodney and bring him back to the info booth and then get a prize or a gift certificate.
Yeah, that's an easy thing to do too. I was just at the La Jolla Farmers Market, just kind of visiting and shopping, and they had, I don't know what it was because I never did see it, but they have like a little character and they hide it in one of the booths, and then they just post on their social and they have a sign at their info booth. Oh, okay, if you find this little guy, come back and tell us what booth it's at, and then they just pick a sticker, like a fruit sticker, out of a jar, and everyone was so excited, not just kids. Like these adults, like they wanted a little fruit sticker. It was so cute. But they come back and be like, oh, we saw it at, Kawano's booth. And then they'd get to pick a little sticker. So that was really cute and like really low effort, but still something fun for them to do. Then they go home, they feel special and they go home with something. So that was kind of fun.
And they're carefully looking at each booth,
Exactly. Then they're
right?
looking at, yes, exactly. So then they're looking around and where they find it is maybe a booth where they haven't bought something before. But since the little character is in that booth, so maybe you take it and you put it in a booth where it's a vendor who's kind of struggling with sales or someone who has a new product that you want to bring some attention to. You can put a little character there so everyone has to come and look at it.
I think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the programming that's the most obvious and likely to be the most helpful is very food-oriented programming.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Lee, who was at the conference this year, I've been reading his Substack. If you don't follow it, do. It's awesome. But his column this week was about the reduction in food IQ in our country. And because of all the processed food and the big corporate food folks, they've really encouraged people to not learn to cook. And then, two-income households or single-income households where it's the mom or what used to be the main food maker is working. Everybody's gone for convenience. And a lot of people, it's been a couple of generations now. And so we've lost our food IQ in terms of being able to look at what's in the fridge and make a meal out of it, or look at what's in the cupboard and put two things together, or just cooking in general. People are low on time, but they're also low on just ability to cook. They don't know how things come together. So if we can show people really basic cooking skills at the market and then show them how to use market ingredients as they're learning the cooking skills, I mean, it's got to lead to more sales.
Yep, definitely. I think that that's so helpful. And I know I've talked about this a ton of them on this podcast, but it's just when I finally took the time to learn how to cook, then it just made such a big difference. And really talking to farmers and vendors at the market, I learned so much from that and my own like food demos that we did at the market. It's like you have to teach them because they're not, and maybe they're in a different phase of parenting. I started out like a really young single mother. And so, of course, I was going like straight for convenience all the time. And some people are just in that season of their life, but then they come around and maybe have more time or they have more ability, more access to foods where they can really cook something good. And you, as a farmer's market, I think it's one of our like responsibilities to provide that knowledge for folks and provide them with the information that they need to do this because it can end up being something that's so helpful for them and their families, or they're cooking for themselves and teaching them how to cook for one and buy like, smaller ingredients at the market. And I think it can just make such a difference. So yeah, it's really good. Michael is brilliant. So I think that's just a smart way to look at things and kind of remind people, hey, like even though we've gotten to this convenience kind of routine and habit, we can always like pull back. We can go back to cooking and bringing people to the table. So.
And do you want to eat convenience food every day? You can start with baby steps. You can just cook on market days or cook the day
Yeah.
after markets or, get you started. We're not saying you can never go to a drive-through, but if you have that ability to cook, you'll save money. Food tastes better, honestly. Your own cooking generally tastes better than what's loaded out at restaurants and drive-throughs and convenience stores.
Exactly. And with so many like dietary restrictions and people really acknowledging what's going on with their body and changing what they're eating, the farmer's market is a great place for people to learn how to cook for what their body needs to.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
We saw a really good demonstration of that with Dawn and Dina from Wisconsin. They brought it to the Intense Conference, but they also bring it to numerous markets in Wisconsin. And they have kind of an easy system to teach other markets how to set it up. But they do a thing called Taste It Tent. That's a sponsored tent. And I think that sponsored thing is important. It's an easy sponsorship to sell because it's something that people go to every single week. And every week they have a new vegetable or fruit. They show you how to cut them up. They do demos on cooking them. They give you recipe cards and they let you taste things. And one of the things that they promote is telling folks that come to the market that this is a way to let your kid try something without having to buy a whole bunch of it and then find out they won't eat it. So they do a lot of samples there and they've collected data on it and it definitely increases the sale of that ingredient that week.
Yeah, I even saw that. I mean, we used to do chef demos at our markets, and whatever they were cooking and the ingredients they were using, that definitely that farmer or that vendor would have like much higher sales for the day because people can see how it's being cooked, because they can sample it, and then they feel more confident purchasing those items and trying it themselves at home. So I loved the idea of a taste it tent and just, I mean, they did a great job presenting how all of that works. And yeah, getting the sponsor there is really helpful because then you can afford to give away samples. Because remember, giving out a ton of samples to folks, that's going to cost you money. So who's paying for that? If you want to bring a really good chef in, they're probably not going to also fund buying all of those things and giving it out. Although we have had some chefs that came and were happy to support the farmers in that way. But starting out with a sponsorship is a really great idea.
Yeah, it's really helpful whether you're buying ingredients for the chef. A lot of times we would give the chefs market money so that they could shop from the farmers. And that's something to talk about too about cooking demos is you want to make sure that you're communicating well with the person that you've partnered with to do the demo. So a lot of times it's a dietitian or it's a local chef. Maybe you have a vendor who shares one of their recipes while someone else staffs their booth. That's a beautiful demo to do that directly will involve sales afterwards. But I think especially when you're talking to somebody from outside the market, like a dietitian or like a chef, you want to be clear with them that you expect them to use market ingredients. Some of the times we talk about what's good and we throw in some cautionary tales, and we have definitely had people show up to do a cooking demo at the market with a whole box of canned food. And it was like, no, what we really want to do is demo foods that you can buy at the market. So you need to be using some fresh ingredients that are available at our market. Or we have a local chef show up that wants to sous vide something. You need to be relatable. So you want to give your demo folks some hints about what's going to make the most effective demo for a farmer's market environment.
Yes, again, think about your community and think about their intention. We have had demos where they are trying to show how you can cook on a budget. And so maybe that's why a few of them would show up with those like canned items or packaged items, but then kind of having that discussion with them and saying, oh, okay, let's start with these like staple items that are at the market, or these are really in season, like the tomatoes are just overflowing and the cost is lower for them because they're at peak season. The farmers are growing so many of them, and these are the varieties that cost a little bit less. And just having that discussion about where to get, the best value at the market. They can also do kind of a demonstration on what you can get if you have a incentives program, like using your EBT. If you have any kind of matching program at your market, okay, this is what you can do with your $15 and your $15 match, and bring, kind of make a meal out of that. So really looking at the cost and the budget of things and talking about shopping seasonally and why it's a better value when you come to the market, because you can buy things that are in season and they didn't have to be, too strategized. They just grow them and pull them out of the ground, peak season, and they can sell them at the market. So, and then why they taste so much better. I mean, you can go on and on, but yeah, just kind of making sure that whoever's doing your demo is really dialed into what your intention is for that demo at your market.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And we've seen some brilliant demos. Megan Haig from the Northside Market in Cincinnati talked about this. They did a whole organized outreach to the Hispanic citizens in their community. And so they really centered their demos on Hispanic foods. Kitchenistas in National City here in California, they have a whole program where they teach people to make traditional foods, the foods that they usually have in their home, but by using fresh ingredients that don't have a lot of salt and sugar in them, they combat some cultural tendencies towards diabetes and to other health problems. So that can be really helpful. Meet people where they are, teach them to make familiar foods that they're going to be comfortable with. Don't try to switch them over to escargot this week. And but teach them how to eat more healthily. And honestly, the food that comes from the farmer's market tastes better. We all know that. So give them a chance to taste their traditional recipes made with really fresh items, and they may get hooked.
And I remember Sina from Minneapolis has been on our podcast many a times, but she was speaking about there's a big Hmong community where she is, and so they would come and do demos, and it would not only kind of enhance like the visibility of that community and their traditions, but also bring in people who weren't Hmong, who were very like curious about what their food traditions were, and they would learn about that, and it just helps bring the community together when you have two, like backgrounds in a community, and that food can really bring those people together, and you find kind of a common ground, and them being able to share their traditional recipes with everybody in the community was just such a special thing for them. So if that is something that, you see at your farmers market community, think of kind of bringing in some traditional recipes being shown to everybody shopping at the market, and how that can make that connection. And then they can have more of maybe like an open dialogue, and they can ask questions. Oh, I've always seen this kind of crop being grown here because the farmer knows that this community appreciates it and uses it in their recipes, but I've always been nervous about trying it. How do you use that? How can I use it in different recipes? And just opening up that conversation, I think, is really special.
It is. And I would imagine that you actually could even get some dialogue going between maybe that community and the farmers, and encourage some farmers to grow things that they'd never thought of planting that could turn out to be a good source of sales for them long term as that community gets more connected to the farmers market.
Definitely. Definitely.
I love the idea of hands-on cooking demos. I know that Sina and her group does a lot of that, so that you're not only watching somebody cook, but maybe you set up 4 or 5 stations where volunteers from the audience or somebody that signs up in advance gets to learn a little bit about knife skills, or how you clean a certain vegetable before you put it in food, and how things come together, and what it means to simmer versus saute. Those are really basic skills that not everybody has anymore. And letting people actually learn and do that hands-on, great for adult shoppers that are there, also amazing for kids. Kids that cook typically will be much less picky in terms of eating than kids who don't cook, because they love to eat what they make.
Exactly. Yes. And that's a really good point, too, about the knife skills. Because if you have a knife sharpener at your market, or someone selling cooking knives, which I always try to encourage farmers markets to have someone, if they have someone available to do that, that'd be great. So maybe you are not even cooking a full meal, and maybe it's not really about the food, but about this is, the different knives that you use for different chopping and cutting. And this is education about knives, because, not everybody has that by far. And so that will help them feel more comfortable in the kitchen, which leads to more ingredient purchasing. So it all comes back to the market. But that's a great thing you could do if a cooking demo feels a little overwhelming to you. Maybe have a knife skills demo.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how those basic skills intimidate people and keep them away from the kitchen and from cooking their own food. So teaching people that really empowers them.
Definitely. Our knife sharpener at the market has taught me so much about knives. I feel like I never knew anything about knives. And I'm like, I've used a knife before, but he's like, nope, you're using it wrong. This is the wrong knife. This is, and it's like, okay, just learned so much just because he's a wealth of information. That's his expertise. So bringing those people out to your community are just is such a benefit.
Oh, check with your knife sharpener, folks. See if they're a cooking hobbyist and if they'd like to do a little knife skill lesson.
Yep.
There's also other kinds of food related programming that you can do. Cook-offs. We've had a lot of conversation in our online group about cook-offs, whether it's a chili cook-off or a pie contest. There's some permitting things that vary from place to place. So that's part of what that conversation has been about. We're hearing a lot that you can't really let the public judge because if it's just consumer-based hobby kind of chefs that are bringing pies, you can't pass that out to people in a permitted event. Depends on your area. I'm going to bet you that in some areas, not a problem, but do make sure and check with your local authorities and find out. You do a chili contest, not for a market, but for another organization, and that's a huge thing. So anything where you can get your vendors involved in doing sort of a themed production. I know the market in Tennessee, I'm trying to think of who that is. We've had her on the podcast a couple of times.
Okay, see.
Casey, yeah,
Yeah.
they do a big pickle fest at their market, and almost every vendor in their market pickles something for that event. It's incredible. And they usually do it to a level where they can sell some, and they're constantly selling out of everything. Who knew? Some people will buy anything pickled. Well, not everybody will buy anything pickled. Your husband, for instance, will not touch a pickle with a 10-foot pickle.
Yes, my husband does not like anything pickled. He doesn't like pickles, but you know what that means? That means that there's more pickles for me. And if I have pickles at the house, I know that he's not going to eat them and I can just enjoy them at my leisure, although not when he's in the room. So, yes, I would definitely attend a pickle fest at a farmer's market. He would stay home for that. But that's a brilliant idea because I think that, and it kind of helps your farmers market vendors kind of express a little creativity with what they're doing. Maybe they're not a pickle vendor, but they've always wanted to experiment with pickling things. So yeah, that sounds fun because I'm sure they get super creative and you'll see some funny things there.
Yeah, and it's a way that you wrap your vendors into the programming because people are going from booth to booth, checking out what crazy thing they've pickled that week. So I think that's amazing. Contests of various kinds work really well. Travelers Rest Farmers Market has a tomato sandwich contest every year, which I think is brilliant during tomato season. I'm still hoping to be asked to be a judge for that one of these years. And then Growing Roots in Pennsylvania, they do a lot of themed. I think they have a strawberry palooza and they have a tomato fest, and they kind of work their way through the summer, just featuring different types of fruits or vegetables and having various people make things out of those. Again, brings it back to the vendors, lets people concentrate on tasting what is absolutely the best, most ripe, perfectly in season food for that period of the year. And they do a really good job with that. Somebody also just did, and they shouted out to Growing Roots because I think they had heard about it from them. But someone else just did as well, a blind taste test of a certain kind of food. And I think that is the cleverest thing ever. And they film it and they put it on social media, and people really get to understand the difference between the way a farmer's market tomato tastes and a supermarket tomato tastes.
Those are so funny. And Christy did that for Growing Roots at the conference when she was talking about her social media and showed a little clip of the blind taste test. And just, I mean, it was edited together so wonderfully and very captivating and just showing people tasting like a farmer's market strawberry and a grocery store strawberry and just the difference that you can taste in there. That'd be fun for kids. It'd be really great to like get your point across about why shopping at farmers markets is important, not just because you're supporting the farmer community, but because you're going to eat better food that tastes better. So you can kind of do a little advocacy for your farmers market while having a really fun activity. I like that she does that.
I do too. I'm thinking of one of those myself.
Mhm.
Would it be fair to have people do a blind test tasting on jalapenos, or too scary?
Depends on the community. What's their heat threshold? I
Right?
feel like some communities and neighborhoods they could take it.
All right.
It's like that Hot Ones that's hot sauce show where it gets hotter and hotter. You could do a hot sauce tasting your own hot ones at your farmer's market. One of my hot sauce vendors, speaking of, shout out to Down to for Men. He just got on this like super popular show. They're going to use one of his hot sauces on there. So he's very proud. We're very proud of him. And they work so hard. They're going to use, it's called, that's what Shishito says, because all of their hot sauces have very clever names. And it's a shishito pepper. It's a very mild hot sauce. So it's my favorite one, obviously, because my heat threshold is about 1.5. So they're going to use it on this show, though. And it's this huge thing because it's a wildly popular show that he has celebrities on there. And they have to have a conversation while gradually tasting hotter and hotter hot sauces until like they can't breathe and they're crying.
That's amazing.
And we also know other celebrity Hot Ones participants. Sarah Marshall's hot sauce was on there as well. And she's an old friend of the conference and of us. So she had her hot sauce on there. So this is a great place for a farmer's market hot sauce to get on there. But you could do your own contest at your market. Just have a lot of milk or ice cream handy to help.
Right.
And
EMT standing by.
And I will not be participating because I'll tap out after about 2. But fun thing to do, fun thing to do, taste testing, blind tests, anything where people can have some fun, trying unique products, and it gets them talking and they're taking pictures and videos and sharing. And it just kind of is a fun activity at your market, which also helps folks go and purchase things. So if you're doing a blind test and everyone's like, oh, this grocery store strawberry is disgusting, I'm going to go buy these strawberries from this awesome farmer over here. So thinking about bringing it all back to helping folks make purchases at your market.
Yeah, very best reason to do programming. So that's kind of one of our key tips. Let's be sure that programming doesn't distract from shopping. Now, there are some events that are just so big, they may distract some from vendors and reduce sales on a certain day. Maybe you're doing an annual tomato fest and that guy that doesn't sell anything related to tomatoes at all, or even bread that you can make a tomato sandwich out of, maybe he's having kind of an off day. That could be an acceptable trade-off for a long-term increase to traffic. You would just need to communicate the heck out of that to your vendors so that that vendor that's just couldn't think of anything to pickle is not too unhappy or disappointed in the way the market went that day. They understand that a bunch of new people came that might have never come to the market before. They're probably going to be back next week and he's going to have a chance to shine.
Yeah, exactly. And think about those kind of activities. There's people that are going to come to the market. Maybe my husband will somehow not realize it's a pickle fest and show up there and want to go purchase everything that's not pickled.
Right.
So helping your vendors feel comfortable about that, and then expectations of sales and long-term marketing strategies are important. So these things kind of bring extra folks to the site, and then they're going to come back, week after week at the market.
Yeah, and we mentioned a little bit about making sure the traffic pattern works. Keep your event within the market. If you have something exciting that's happening, you want to put it close enough to booths that the overflow wanders around and buys things, but not so close to booths or blocking an aisle so that it prevents people from shopping. So just really think through your site and how you're arranging people.
Exactly. And I just had this conversation with another market manager. We have really large, busy markets that are packed, and, we get very amazing Yelp reviews, except for the only thing anyone ever says that's negative is that they can't even walk around because it's so crowded. So I don't do a lot of programming at my big busy market because there's just nowhere to put anybody for any kind of programming. So but I've seen programs at busy markets where they just kind of like they just snag a little corner and they figure it out. But keeping that in mind, no matter how big your market is, even if it's a smaller market and you have a few vendors there, placement of your activities is very, very vital. You need to think about that all the way through. Where are you going to place these folks? Because you want the activity close enough to the vendors where the people shop while either they're kind of keeping an eye on the activity or right before or right after the activity, but not so close to where it's blocking their booth or the noise is too loud and they can't speak to their shoppers who are just shopping during the activity time. So placement is really, really important. It's very key, and communication with your vendors, like you said.
Well, you bring up a good point. Maybe what stage your market at affects how you think about programming. So I know that you at that very, very big market have people contact you and say, hey, we want to partner with you and bring this event to your market because it'll bring people there. And it's like, have you been there? Do you think there's room for people there, for more people than we already have? No. So the stage that your market's at really determines what kind of programming you want to engage in. So if you have a really big well-established market. It's already really crowded. Maybe you want to do is concentrate more on a single, well-organized, well-thought-out annual event rather than trying to do programming every week. Still have something fun that the community can come out for, but not try to crowd more people into those aisles every week. The other tack you could take is engaging a sponsor or a very dedicated volunteer to maintain one strong cooking demo or tasting booth, but in a booth, not try to integrate it into the market within the aisles or in a area where you might put your info booth or something like that. You want them to be really established and kind of out of the flow.
Yeah, exactly. And then just thinking about like who's coming to your market. Is it a neighborhood market where people are really like coming there and they're eating dinner while they're shopping and they're hanging out for a long time and they're kind of meeting up with their community members? You can have activities that last a little longer, or something that I have done at the market and we did at the large market is like a book signing. And so that's a little bit more mellow because it's not this really long activity, but you have an author there and they can speak about the book. Folks can come up and buy the book and, look at the recipes, maybe if it's a cooking book, and go shop from the farmers that offer those products. But they're not doing a huge presentation. It's not really stopping them. It's not creating a crowd situation. So think about the foot traffic at your market. What can you fit there? What makes sense there? And how long people are coming to the market. I think at my big market, people do hang out for a while, but some of them are really like blasting through because they're like getting their shopping done and they're going on with their Saturday, or they have a 2-hour parking spot. So we're downtown. So parking is really top of mind when I'm thinking about how long my community is staying at my market. So not pulling their attention away from what we all need to make as our top priority is shopping. So, but if they're hanging out, for a few hours there, maybe give them something that lasts a little bit longer, the taste test things, or a little bit better music or an activity or something. So it all depends on what your communities, could manage there.
I mean, and that's always what we have to do when we think about anything related to markets is look at our own individual community, our traffic patterns, time of day, and think about what fits best for us. I will be reaching out, y'all, in, 6 months, 8 months, to talk about that book tour, and I'll come do a book signing at your market. That'll be fun.
I'll reserve a booth for you.
Okay, that's my dream of a book tour, is just to travel from market to market and set up my tent.
I mean, what a dream for everybody. That would be lovely. I'll be like your agent and I'll just come around with you and help hand you books so I can go to all these markets as well.
Excellent. This will be fun. Road trip.
This is our next phase of life, everybody. So anything that brings more people to farmers markets is a good thing. Being intentional about programming that teaches people to use the fresh produce, eggs, meat, and other ingredients from the market can have a long-lasting effect on sales. Simply scheduling on-site events that make people smile will likely bring them back again and again. We're all looking for places that make us feel better now more than ever. Let's be that place for our community.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. And big thanks to the Kitchen Door for helping food makers find the right licensed commissary kitchens to support their farmers market businesses, getting them off to a great start, like Lisa at Ruby Jewel Ice Cream Sandwiches. And thanks to Kitchen Door for supporting Tent Talk, the farmers market podcast. Get cooking by clicking the Kitchen Door logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow farmers market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in for another great episode.